Yeah.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Sarah?
Here. Here.
Andrea? Here. Ross?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we have the approval of the September 9th, 2024 council meeting minutes.
Motion.
Motion by Eric. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have the approval of the September 23rd, 2024 committee of full minutes.
Motion.
By Andrea. Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passed. And we're gonna move down to administrative reports, mayor's report, he didn't leave anything for me. Village solicitor's report.
Got nothing to report. There's a number of pieces of legislation if you have any questions. But we've been through most of them in the last couple of meetings in the county.
Police chief's report.
The monthly activities, you all receive those by the committee of the whole meeting. Just the department right now, we currently have a lot of newer officers. They all seem to be doing a really good job. The amount of incidents that we have been handling have increased quite a bit, along with the different levels of incidents. We've had occur in the past week alone. We've had 2 high-speed pursuits that come out of the village, which I think is more what we had last year altogether. So I don't know if it's some in the weather or what, but there's definitely been an increase in activities.
Any questions for the chief?
Did you catch those 2?
We caught one. My knowledge, he's still incarcerated, waiting for everything. There'll be felony charges. They'll go to the county police court for indictment. And we have a lead on the last one. Ultimately, the last one, he broke off just to the speeds and he was unsafe to continue with it, so they broke him off.
Thank you for considering speed. That was one of the things, is making sure we're keeping the community safe while doing that. So thank you.
Okay, village administrator's report.
As always, I do have a few things just to go over with council. Going through the wastewater treatment plant, our September average daily flow was 336,000 gallons, plant capacity of 440,000. We still have some playroom in there, but we're still getting close. On the water treatment plant, September average daily flow was 590,000 against 1 million. A lot of that was dry weather, a lot of watering, those kind of things going on, but it still lets us know we're getting us towards that pipeline. There's also been some ditch cleaning, major ditch cleaning over in Walker Point. I think it's gone very well. We've had a few comments which we've addressed. If you've had any comments from residents, I have not heard them, but I need to know about them. But the ones that have called in, we've addressed them and seem to be satisfied with the results. A lot of people weren't sure exactly where the property line was. They thought it would go back to the ditch. It does not. We took the plot plans out there and actually measured it off, to show them where things were, and we are not on private property. One person called in, and I assure you, we are on private property, we'll stop and move. It's not our goal. This project was not to create hardships on any village residents. We just need to clean the ditch up. When that 7 million in, of course, there's nothing there. It's open ditch the whole way. And over the years, it's put up a sewer line, put in there, a lot of different things. We just try to get it back where we can maintain.
I wanted to just say thank you as a resident that butts right up against that. It was amazing. I really appreciated it because even though it's not on our property, we take the initiative to cut it back as much as we can because I do know that impacts that. So for the first time in 17 years living there, somebody else did it. It was very appreciated. So thank you, and thank you for verifying with my neighbors that it was indeed public property.
Like I say, we got several calls and we tried to address them quickly. Well, Mike did a great job.
He did. He actually spoke to me directly.
Great, okay. Mike is the street superintendent, but he's very good with the public and so forth. We now had a conversation with him. I talked to each one individually after that. Everybody seems to be satisfied. So unless there's anything else, I think we're in good shape and we'll be able to maintain that ditch from now on.
Oh, one question.
Yes.
Did he break any equipment? Because man, it sounded rough a couple times.
Did I agree up to
Don't call Mike tomorrow.
I was just wondering, man, there was some big stuff and I was actually just wondering, oh, I hope he didn't break anything, because it,
He's got a grinding machine down there, and it could have been, it got into something that wasn't supposed to.
okay. I was just concerned, making sure everything's okay.
It's gonna say, okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, she's gonna be fixed.
I'll find out in the future in the morning and see what we put together. I have not heard about any problem.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
Mike does a good job keeping me informed. If anything goes wrong or anything at all, he called me, sends me pictures and all kinds of
Yeah, gold star for him.
things. I'll look into that. Wellfield update. As informed you before, last month, we did not entertain River Valley. We're going to go down to our existing well fields. We're going to contract with someone to and give us an update on what the, not necessarily what each well produces, but what the well field will produce. And see if it makes any sense to doing more holes in that area. If that comes back and say, yeah, the well field itself can handle 2 million gallons a day or something like that, and still sustain it, we'll probably put a couple wells down. Otherwise, we'll probably look for another location. But it's something that's critical. What I just showed you there, we're up to 590,000 gallons a day against a 1 million gallon a day plant. We gotta get some water here pretty soon, so we're ready to move ahead and address the things we have to do. So that's the top priority for the village, and I'll keep counsel. If you have any questions anytime, you can call me, but expect where that's sort of over.
Thank you.
New wastewater treatment plant, it's coming along. Been out there and seen it. We've a lot of action out there. There's concrete tanks and so forth. However, we have a couple snags that cropped up and we're trying to work those out. I was hoping to have a plan online last quarter of this year. Probably going to be closer to the first quarter of 25 before we actually get online. And there'll be there's a month startup period in there that's part of the contract that our staff will operate it, that they also have a contractor's representative there. So anything doesn't do what it's supposed to do, it goes to fix it right away. And that's during the 1 year startup period. It's kind of unique because we're going to try and keep 2 plants going at one time.
Yeah.
And we only have so much sewage. We've got, with the 2 plants together, we have 1.4 million gallons of capacity. And we're running about 350,000 gallons worth of sewage. In order to properly operate the plant, you've got to have enough bacteria and so forth to operate. And we'll be on the bubble line there, especially when we're trying to put part of our old plant, part of it in a new plant. New plant has 2 cells, we're going to use 1. As we grow, we'll fill it up, of course, but that'll be a unique experience, and that's kind of things we're dealing with the contractor and the engineer and so forth to make sure how we can do that. And our operator, Jim, does a great job. I mean, he definitely has some ideas on how he's going to see this thing start up. And we're trying to put that in there with the other parties and just make sure when we push the button and the sewage goes in there, we're ready to put it where we need it. Further Point still, as you know, is a active area, a lot of interest. We probably had 4 calls in the last week. People interested in what kind of water and sewer do you have at this piece of property, how about over here? So obviously, we gave them the general information and what we had and what was there, what they would have to do, but I just anticipate probably after the first of the year, we'll have some more activity for council to digest. With that being said, any questions, I'm glad to entertain. There is another part we're going to talk about later in the agenda. Nancy, do you want to get it now or you want to wait? That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Zoning administrator's report. Jen?
Engineer.
Oh, I skipped it, I'm sorry. Village engineers, you weren't there because I didn't see you.
I'm in the back. Thank you. Just a few things to go over. I know at the last meeting, you asked about the turn lanes on Welch Road. So we have looked at those. So starting with the turn lane at Chestnut Commons Drive. So looking at the plans and also what's in the field. So we have a 12-foot lane that meets standards, curb and gutter, that meets standards. Our issue is the taper. So where you have the through lane, you are required to have a 50-foot taper into your right turn lane. What we have out there today does not meet that standard. So, I mean, we can do some construction, we can make that work, but as of right now, I don't recommend striping and signing that as a designated right turn lane until we get that corrected. The second, Welch Road and Chestnut Estates Drive, again, 12-foot width, which meets our standard. It does have the 50-foot taper. This lane, however, does not have curb and gutter, which is fine, but then we are required to have a paved shoulder. We don't have a paved shoulder. So again, this lane also needs some work before we can truly sign it and designate it as a right turn lane, which we can continue those discussions if you like.
Thank you.
I know Belshazzar Street, that's on the agenda. Just wanted to open it up. If there are any other questions or comments about that, feel free to ask. Also on the agenda, Foxfire, the plat for Phase 3, Part 2. Just wanted to let you know that we have looked at that. We have no comments, everything looks fine, so we're okay with that. And I guess any questions or comments for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, zoning administrator's report.
I have no report, no receive any questions.
Any questions? All right, fiscal officer's report.
Just making you aware that temporary appropriations that are on the agenda, first read, and it's just for the first quarter of 2025.
All right, legislative reports. I don't have anything. Ross,
I have nothing.
Sarah,
Nothing.
Eric,
Nothing at this time.
Andrea.
Nothing.
Okay, committee reports, Park and Recreation. We're nearing the end of the year, so we have this Saturday, we have the Halloween festival over here. We'll have games and food and bounce houses, costume contests for people and your fur babies. It's from 12 to 2, so everybody's welcome to come and bring their kids. Other than that, I don't have anything. Land Use Committee,
We've been plugging along. I've had different number of community members involved. We have started to take the physical maps and look at the surrounding area, basically north of the county line and as far south as I don't know where our south boundary is, of what we think maybe the village would benefit from bringing in. Our goal is to have something to present to council as a first look by maybe the 1st of December to see where we're, looking, not our first meeting in December, just to know where we're at and get a feel of, we're going in the direction that council and the public wants us to continue, so we don't get too far deep into it and then find out that that's not what, the direction. So anybody's welcome at our meetings. We love having the input. The community has brought some great ideas and quite frankly, some things that the three of us weren't thinking of. So we'll just keep plugging along and hopefully have something in December for everybody to see.
okay, thank you. Right now we're on public comments. Okay, Kate Anderson. Just want to remind everybody, you have 5 minutes and just state your name and address.
Anderson, 38 East Soda Street. I apologize, I've been sick. My voice will go in and out, so I'm going to try and read this as quickly as I can. So, unfortunately, this kind of is a little personal meeting towards someone, so I guess buckle up, here we go. So the noise ordinance has been, I thought, a dead horse. Somebody shot that horse like 20 times now, but Eric proceeded to bring it up in the last meeting. So Eric, a lot of my conversation is going to be geared to you. I understand that you were a cop previously, officer previously, but you are not one now. This isn't Mayberry, you're not Barney Fife. You can't just shoot from the hip and do whatever you want to do. The stuff going on right now in this town is absolutely ridiculous. We have got literally, Officer Eric has said in that meeting, in your meeting last week, the officers are coming to him for information and to enforce. But every time the complaints are brought up, he never seems to remember any of the names that are actually being brought to him. So he states that this is a continuing issue. I'd like to know who. Along with that, you know, I understand that you owned a bar and it burnt down. I don't know why. Maybe that's the vendetta against the two bars, or I guess the vendetta is against one bar, because everything that happens on the other one never gets reported. So I do want to address the council. Another dead horse that's gone on there is the anonymous calls. We were told, and the council all voted, that they would not be reporting to an anonymous call. We were just told from the officer on Thursday that there was an anonymous call. So I just want to figure out where we're at on this. You know, I'm just aggravated. Eric, you proceeded to stay at Struckman's on Thursday and video. You kept videoing. Another lady there kept videoing. I don't know what you were videoing because I have the same videos. We were kind of laughing. We were videoing them, videoing us. There was nobody out of control. There was two people playing acoustic, and at 8:30 they were told that it was too loud. And I do have videos I can share with anybody that wants them. There was maybe 15 to 20 people on the patio, so you can't blame it on anybody that was listening to the music or being a part of it. So I'm curious on this because we keep being told that it's dropped, everything that's dropped. But then, you know, we have Eric going on his own time and trying to bring up this noise ordinance. I do understand in the meeting it was saying that it was going to be tabled, but people are just being tired of being told it's tabled, then it gets brought up, and it seems like he wants that to pass without anybody knowing it. Which brings me to the next event. In that last meeting, we were told that it was not going to affect anybody's backyard. And if you go back to the notes, it clearly states it would be an establishment only, which is illegal because you can't target an establishment versus somebody's backyard. So with that, if you go into 45 minutes into your last meeting, Eric clearly states that it would affect everybody's backyard, and I would like that to be known. That would be anybody with two people or more having music in their backyard. I just don't agree with that at all. I think we need to focus our time and find other things. I personally volunteer for a lot of different events. I can tell you where to sign up. I can help you sign up, whatever. If somebody's got this much spare time, I just don't understand. And if you do have that much spare time, focus on your own place. There's multiple cars in your driveway or on your property that are not registered. There's a scaffolding up the back of the house that looks like it's been there for years. There's electric occasionally running to the motorhome that somebody's staying in. Let's focus and keep things in our backyard. We have a dump truck, skipping over that, we have a dump truck in town center for over 2 weeks. Never been moved, never been tagged, never anything here. We have a girlfriend of a property owner acting absolutely psychotic many times. She has been cussing out one of our council members. I'm trying to figure out how that person was not arrested. When we have somebody in town center acting like a maniac, cussing, screaming, let alone at an elected official, I don't think it should be just swept under the rug. I think something needs to be done with that. We have so many different issues on so many different things. It's hard to even bring back. It seems like every time council spends this much time on something, then it gets pushed under the rug and then it's brought up during a meeting. The one thing that he brought up was anything that would be two people or more needed to be voted upon. I'm really curious on who on this board has enough time to vote on that. And if it doesn't vote, what happens? Do they put in for another 90 days? You know, is that what we're trying to do? Because I don't see this. But I think we need to focus on 762. We have plenty of videos. I'll send them to anybody. I've submitted them. We have people going double line, passing in the curb, including a bus that was passed in the curb. I've got plenty of videos on that. I just think we as a village need to spend our time more wisely on the resources that we have. And we can't even keep officers, and I think half of it is because of these kindergarten games that are going on. So I hate to throw out a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm, at this point, if it's gonna be a continued vendetta, I didn't move into an HOA, nobody's gonna govern who's in my backyard or what the noise is. So at this point, I would ask that Eric either resign or the board takes a look at the background. And no offense, there's a whole lot of stuff on Pickaway County on you, so, let's figure it out, sorry, thank you. No, you're fine.
Okay, Jennifer Hesford?
Isn't public record when people use first responders' time? Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Right. It feels like no matter the compromising the bar has done, complaints are still happening. So maybe we should have an adult back and forth conversation with the complainers, which is the reason I asked for that list of names. If it would allow us to tell their story, help us understand what you want, because this feels like harassment. I should also note that the owners have been advised by their attorney not to speak on this until after tonight's vote. Eric, we know you have very strong opinions on this issue, and a few questions to think about for everybody. He did own a bar, so he understands the trials and tribulations that a bar owner goes through. How would he feel if that complaining about a reasonable noise level coming from his bar and it affecting the money that the bar is making? How would it feel if you had compromised and the complainers kept complaining? Would it be reasonable to say every time a police officer walks into a bar, it has a negative impact? Would if police were sitting in the alley adjacent to a bar for a length of time, would it be reasonable to say that that also has a negative impact on a bar? How would you feel if police officers routinely asked people that live around the bar that has been there for over 100 years if the noise is annoying them? You're a retired police officer, I believe in Pickaway County, so you have a pretty clear picture of what the crime is in our area, whether that crime is domestic violence, drugs, violence, high-speed chases. Those take precedence over Rob Adams playing outside at Beck's garage. I live your name. I asked these questions not to target Eric, but to get a resolution plan together. They've taken decibel readings in front of the bar on Convoy Street, at 21 Main Street, which is my house, and behind the bar in the alley, and it all has been below the regular traffic noise that 762 raises. What is the goal of the complaints? To run the local business? Because that has some major legal implications. They've stopped doing live music after 9. They have a sign up urging people to respect the village residents and keep the volume down. What more can the bar do? When music was needed for the car show, Beck's Garage was happy to utilize the resources to help out. They're doing everything that's asked of them, and yet here we are instead. Help everyone understand what exactly it is you want. On behalf of taxpayers, this is not what I want my taxpayer dollars to be wasted on when we have fentanyl running up and down the floor. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, we have Jennifer Fleck.
I too have some of the same issues as the two before me. I also have witnessed an incident where Wendy Sizemore personally attacked verbally one of my friends. She was screaming, insulting, cursing in front of the post office. Mike Struckman was there, the building owner, and he did nothing about it. He did nothing to stop her. She continued for at least another 6 minutes screaming at the top of her lungs, airing out business. We did call Adam. He did go over and talk to her, but at that moment she should have been honestly arrested for disorderly conduct because she was violent and had turbulent behavior, and there was more than what Adam said. There need to be a group of people, but according to the law in Ohio Law Section 2917.11, disorderly conduct, it has 2 or more people, and there was 4 people there. Wendy is a ticking time bomb. She gets upset over the littlest minute item, anything, and she's going to end up hurting somebody. I have witnessed this firsthand myself. As of, somebody needs to stop her, honestly, and Mike has no control, and he would haven't taken any control as the business owner or the building owner himself. As of last Thursday, I did personally see Eric setting out in front of the old post office where Mike Struckman owns the building, Wendy opening the door and walking him in. There was videotaping going on, there was pictures being taken. Wendy also went upstairs to the window or the apartment above with the window open, videoing, taking pictures of. The view must have been better up there, I don't know. But, and they were all looking at Beck's, Doughboy's, now Beck's garage. And this was the last Thursday night, October the 3rd, that this all happened. Then, like I said before, the cop came in and said there was an anonymous call, and again, my understanding was that they were not to be running on anonymous calls. Their time is better well spent their time is better well spent patrolling the community, keeping our residents and our children safe. I have a pretty good idea where the call came from, the anonymous call came from. The officer sat out in the parking lot, out in the alley, 35, 45, maybe longer. And like I said, he should have been out here patrolling, keeping our residents safe. As council members, I hope this opens your eyes, that you can see that there is harassment and there is a vendetta on Beck's garage. Eric and Wendy Bush have been charged for telecommunication harassment. Ohio Law, Section 2917.21, Section 1, that they are recording for the purpose of harass, intimidate, and abuse of a person or premises, which they're not abusing, but they are harassing and trying to intimidate the patrons of Beck's. As a resident, this is not the type of council member that I want to represent me and others in the village. He is only on the council for one reason, and one reason only, and that is for his personal gain. He is not on council for the good of the residents or the village, and his actions last Thursday showed exactly that. He needs to be removed from council immediately. It takes 2/3 vote from council to remove him. As a resident, I am asking with the council to do this for the right of the village and for the residents. Otherwise, we are opening the village up for another lawsuit, one that I'm sure that neither of you, any of you, want to go through. And I don't want my tax dollars spent on this type of petty, immature behavior from a council member.
Okay, next up we have Rob Adams.
Just keep beating the horse, I guess. It's here mainly because of what was said about the two people. As the vice president of the men's club, we do have weddings. I know we had 2 weddings this summer. That were outside in the shelter house, the big shelter house. So I don't know if they had a DJ or a band. I've never seen a wedding without a DJ, so I'm assuming they had something. As far as I know, it wasn't a problem, but I'm just saying, obviously they have more than 2 people. It's not business, but there's that possibility. You know that's going to sound, comes right across that field at you. So there's that. As far as the bars, I'm one that plays music, and I was one played Thursday, got told to turn down. I was told to turn down at the beginning of the season. So I did my own little experiment, and the last time I played at Station House, I turned up. Very, very loud, but it was uncomfortable to sit on that. Probably I shouldn't have done it for the people that paid to see me, but I did. And I watched a commercial phone officer drive up and down 3 times and not stop. That same night, when I got done, because Steve shuts down an hour earlier with his entertainment, I go next door, and my buddy's playing, and while he was setting up at 5:30, that same officer stopped and told him, "Hey, just to let you know, it's too loud, we're shutting you down." Now, this guy had never played there before. Since this, he had in past years, but not this summer. He had no idea of what's been going on. So he had no reason to make this up. I have to believe him. But to say that that's not targeting the business is, I mean, you gotta be blind. But other than that, I just wanted to point that out. And I appreciate your time.
Next up, we have George Knoll. On the road.
I've been here 56 years. I've lived in this town. I used to live in a little town. And ever since then, I go to bars sometimes, listen to music and everything. A couple of months ago, about 9:30 at night, they had a band there. I went up to 762 Congress Street to see if I could hear it. Could not hear it. I heard crickets going crazy. That was it. Another thing is, we got kids right up and down the streets on mini bikes. No lights on nothing. They went past my house. A kid on a black mini bike. He was probably 200 pounds. Still in school. He was flying. I don't know who he was. I don't know where he lived, but they need to calm that down, or do something about it, or somebody gets killed. I live right there on Southern Street, right there by Rose Pizza, in the White House, 26 East. I don't have kids or anything like that, but I have nephews and I love them to death, including Eric. This stuff needs to kind of quit, you know what I mean? And kids when you ride them on the streets, they should have helmets. Yeah, and parents with them. Not something's going to happen. I hate to see it happen.
Thank you. Okay, last on the list, Ralph Holdren.
So, we've heard all these complaints. I'm going to tell you my side of it from somebody that runs sound professional and also DJs professional. The comments that was made in that meeting about this band's too loud, even if they're unplugged, but a DJ's not. The DJ system that I use is the same one I run bands through on stages. We can test that theory if you want, because if we really believe that, I'll go to Beck's Garage and DJ for free one night to show you how much louder a DJ can be in a band. There's so many factors that go into place when we're running sound. We have state guidelines and federal guidelines that we have to follow, that we can't be over a certain dB because it'll hurt people's ears. When you're making these rules, or thinking about making these rules, everything I've heard, there's nothing clear. Well, who's hearing every day? Whose ears are we using? Yours, his? We don't know. We use a dB meter. When we play in Delaware, we can't be over a certain dB outside the bar. At least we know what our volume level is. At some point, you guys have got to quit, like I heard today, I agree with it, harassing this bar and say, here's our set rules. And if you cross them, it becomes silly. It shouldn't be that a council member goes down there and videotapes and takes pictures. That's Chief's job. To go over and say, hey, here's our rule, you pass this, turn it down to this. When we play in Plain City, they got limiters out there. The bands cannot go over a certain volume because we have to plug into their limiters. They control the volume, no matter what. When it looks at, and Rob can tell you a lot of times, when these guys are up on stage with us, they don't even have amps and stuff up here. They're playing through in-ear monitors, and we're controlling the whole sound. We're processing everything. So to say that 2 or more people need a permit is ridiculous. I run sound for a band full time. They can't come in my backyard and practice without a permit because they're going to be too loud. When the guy's radio next door can be louder than the system I'm pushing through. We're making decisions on stuff that, frankly, nobody really knows anything about. If you're going to look into this, sit down and look at the state and federal guidelines and actually learn about what goes into pro sound and what these bands have to go through in order to play. Like I said, if you guys want, we want to test that theory that a DJ is okay and the band's not, we'll test it. I'll go to Beck's garage and I'll set up a system. But I promise you, it won't take very long for the chief to come shut me down. Because you're going to hear me clear over in Walker Point. Right? And the other thing I had an issue with was also what I heard was our officers are coming to a council member for advice, training, whatever. That's opening us up for a lawsuit because I'm not sure, Chief can probably tell me, but I'm pretty sure you have to be certified and licensed to train officers. And if he tells me to do something and they go get hurt or they hurt somebody, who's liable? The village is. So I would like for you guys also to look into that whoever's training our police department is actually licensed and certified to train. Thanks.
Okay, that's all of the public comments. Next, we're going to move on to business items. First one up is Allison Farms TIF, the discussion. Just to let everybody know, we're only going to discuss the TIF. We're not going to discuss the zoning or anything else since that is still been put on the table. So, did you want to?
Thank you. My name's Glenn Better. I'm returning from St. Broad Street, Smith and Hale. I represent Addison Farms. I'm here with Joe Miller from the Rice Firm. We're here, I think, at Village Solicitor's invitation to talk about the TIF. As you point out, the zoning which we submitted earlier in August is still on the table, and I think for the time being, we sort of prefer to leave it there. I think I only have maybe one mention about that, and that is, please tell me if I'm wrong, it's our understanding that at least that zoning submission complies with all, which I think, Mr. Bailey, you brought to our attention that maybe there were some issues with the prior submittal, which did comply with the pre-annexation agreement, but that this one does comply with your current regulations requirements, and I guess I just wanted to get that cut off the table, so that's sort of our understanding, but we want to get that verified. As to the TIF, what we did was our client submitted a letter dated August 15th. It outlines that TIF proposal. It tries to address, I think, the gap between the prior plan, the plan which complies with current village requirements. We had to remove all townhouses from that plan. We removed 112 lots from that plan. We're trying to make all this work. And so the proposal that you have in front of you is, I think, fairly similar to a lot of TIF proposals anymore. Almost all new development seemingly one way or another seems to require TIF. I'm not sure if that's the developer's fault or the city's fault, but it just seems that's to be the case. Cities ask a lot of developers, and we now have these flexibility devices like TIFs that enable them to respond in a positive way. So we prepared that letter. We submitted it to you. It does address, I don't know if anybody's ever read a TIF pro forma before. I've read hundreds of them, and this one's very similar to many of those similar agreements. It contemplates, and I think maybe if I can digress just briefly here, I know there are a lot of people in the meeting tonight, but kind of just the general way in which TIF works, and who's paying and who the proverbial ox is being bored. Currently a property like that, 110 acres used primarily for agricultural purposes, is not taxed on its fair market value. It's taxed on its agricultural value. Through the current agricultural use valuation program in the state of Ohio, you make a filing before the first Monday in March, and instead of your property being taxed at its fair market value, it's taxed at its agricultural value. In Central Ohio, that's running anywhere from $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000. A fraction of probably what the fair market value is. Most farm values that I see are paying under, $200-$400 an acre a year in taxes. the way the CAUV works is that when the property gets converted from agricultural to some other developmental purposes, you recapture the prior 3-year savings, and then the property is then subsequently taxed at its improved value. That improved value could be several tens of thousands of dollars, significantly above what's currently being taxed right now. The developer would then typically build their improvements, sewer extensions, water extensions, streets, subdivision, et cetera. And then they will build the houses, and there's typically a couple-year gap on that. And at that point, the taxpayer, the owner of the lot, would pay his taxes. He is paying exactly the same amount of taxes as any other single-family home builder or buyer in commercial or anyplace else. The TIF mechanism allows for those dollars to be used to reimburse whoever has put those public improvements in. And a couple of points on that. First of all, the request in our letter to you is a non-school TIF, meaning that the schools would continue to get anything that they would otherwise have gotten had the TIF district not been put in place. So somewhere between 65 and 75% of your real property tax dollar, depending upon where you live and what school district you're in, goes to local schools. The way we fund schools in Ohio is through real property taxes. That comes from all of us who are homeowners. We pay our property taxes. Roughly 70% of that goes to the local school district. The balance of that would then be sent from the auditor to the village and be deposited into a TIF fund, be used to either retire debt or to reimburse the developer who has paid for those improvements. That's what we propose. That's what is, at least in my opinion, we pause the zoning because we need to come to some understanding with the village as to whether we can look out something on the TIF side. This is exactly like many situations where you don't have the development absent TIF mechanism, because in order to get public utilities to this project, we have significant amounts of off-site costs. It would be great if there was a sanitary sewer in the water line right under Rec Road. There is not. Somebody has to drag it there, and somebody has to be paid for doing so. And we have indicated that we are willing to do that, subject to reimbursement and for the costs of building the roads and the streets and the subdivision and the sidewalks, etc. I think it's important to know, and I'll be happy to answer any questions and talk about 2 more brief things, that everything, that the limit on TIF expenditures is, these have to be public improvements. And everything that we would be reimbursed for, or anything that the bond would pay for, all of those things are in a public right of way. They would be built maybe by somebody else, but they would end up being owned by the village of Commercial Park. So streets, sidewalks, sewer extensions, water line extensions, these are all public infrastructure. And so what we are paying for, you aren't paying for it. Arguably, we're not paying for it. But what we are paying for is using this TIF mechanism to help deliver those public improvements. And so that's the kind of the genesis of the TIF, how TIFs work. I could probably talk for the next 2 hours, although I think there would be people who are upset with me if I did so about the history of TIFs, which I'm happy to do. I'm happy to answer any questions about the TIFs. I would mention, I think, 2 things that we have not, we've really not had any discussion with the administration or the village solicitor. In our August 13 letter, we offered to establish and work with the village to establish an NCI. It's a new community authority. New community authorities have been around since we got ourselves in a pickle in Albany and had to figure out how to tax the new people but not the old people. And what we did was we created a mechanism whereby there can be additional millage to people who live in the community, very similar to here. We would pay a slightly higher millage, and yet the current residents would not be subject to that millage. We've offered that. We've had, despite numerous attempts, and I get it, you know, when things get sideways and things get adversarial, there's probably not as much conversation as there should. But, you know, we think that that's a perfectly rational way to proceed. It's a very consistent way to proceed. There are a lot of the suburban communities around central Ohio use NCAs to help kind of defray some of these additional costs and put the costs on some of the people who, quite frankly, should be bearing it, who are the residents of your community. So we haven't had any discussion with Mr. Mattis or the mayor about that. I think that's something that bears some additional discussion. Unfortunately, by virtue of the way it's structured, it is not as remunerative. It's not as lucrative, say, as doing the TIF. It's very common to do TIFs in combination with NCS, and we haven't had the opportunity to have that kind of discussion. We think that's something that, quite frankly, I don't know that many or any of my clients who are in the business of building homes to try and accommodate the growing population in central Ohio truly object to the NCA component, the NCA methodology. The final thing, and again, we haven't had any discussion with, which we would like to, is concerns, and I don't think this was in the letter, but I think it's been debated and maybe that developed. We are willing, again, subject to discussion and negotiation. And I know that there was a lot of negotiation on this thing before I got into it, missed out. I wish I had been a part of that, but I wasn't. In any event, communities like yourselves that have their own sewer plant, have their own water plant. We just heard the report tonight. We're getting close on, I don't know, water sewer plant. I'm not quite sure what it was, but it was water, yeah. Part of my understanding and again, I wasn't here, some of you were, that the justification for going to do this subdivision is that it did add users to the plant. It did add users to the water system, and those people all pay their own way. We are willing to and happy to discuss with the administration, you, whoever it might be. This is sort of a difficult negotiating form, but it's, nevertheless, we are happy to talk to you about how those payments can be leveraged, can be prepaid, there's an advantage to that. And many could use that prepayment mechanism as sort of a standard operating procedure to generate revenues for their sewer and water district. So, we got happy to answer any questions about the TIF. Love to talk to somebody if we have a dance partner on the NCA. Love to talk to somebody too about the prepayment of tap fees and capacity charges. We're trying to get this resolved short of everybody squaring off and saying we're going to get adversarial here about it. I think, Mr. Chairman, that it's good that we're on the table. I think the right thing, at least from our standpoint, is to probably prepare a TIF legislation, but at least before doing so, I thought, Mr. Mattis thought it important for us to come here tonight and to at least have some of that discussion. So I've said my piece, happy to answer any questions.
With your TIF, I understand that you also want to be reimbursed for the streets inside of the development.
Yes.
Why would we do that?
They're public improvements. You're going to own them.
We've not done.
You may never have. You also have never been in a situation that we find ourselves in today, where you have an agreement and not willing to want to go forward with that agreement.
I understand how TIFs work.
Yeah.
But what we have in the past allowed infrastructure outside of that development.
You're making an arbitrary,
Right.
that distinction is not found in Ohio statute. That's a policy decision. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I mean, my feeling is, we're already, the schools are getting crowded and, things have changed since you came to us a year and a half plus ago. And this is just my feeling. Other people may have other opinions. I feel that if somebody wants to come here, then they need to pay their way to come here.
They are.
And I don't feel, all of our other TIFs for residential, 100% comes to the village, except for Foxfire, that was through previous administration.
except outside infrastructure. So for me, I would not be for allowing the TIF for inside roads and
Yeah.
things like that. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted you to,
Yeah,
that's right, my opinion of it.
Yeah, that's a policy decision, but it's not one, that distinction that you're making is not found in the statute, to my knowledge.
But it's founded in my opinion.
Joe Miller, Ron's done a great job of setting the table. We want to hear from you, but unfortunately, that distinction is also not in the pre-annexation agreement. So for this property to develop, there was a pre-annexation agreement with 3 legs necessary for the property's development. Annexation, which is taking place. Zoning, which is on the table, and I understand that that's not the subject tonight. We look forward to a fulsome discussion of that, because I think we've listened and we've really, adapted the plan to your code. And I think, I hope that you'll feel like, okay, you've hit the mark now in terms of what our code contemplated. But the third thing is, that is necessary, is a TIF. This is all public infrastructure. These are all improvements, quote unquote, able to be reimbursed by TIF funding. And that pre-annexation agreement negotiated by the village didn't make the distinction that you're suggesting. It required the village to annex. It required the village to provide zoning, and it did require the village to provide a TIF. And so we're trying to work with you in good faith on the zoning and be adaptive, but by the same token, I understand this is a policy decision you want to make. It's not in a contract to which the village bound itself, and it's not bounded in Ohio law. I would like to hear from others on this same subject, because ultimately I agree with them. What we'd like is to partner with the village, and that we would work with the village solicitor to develop a TIF ordinance. We need to hammer out what you'd like to do. There are things we can offer as well, the NCA, to prepaid tap fees, but there's also things we need, and we've hit upon one of them. We're being very plain spoken and upfront about that and what the village agreed to under the pre-annexation agreement. But what our ideal, and I think it's probably in the village's best interest as well to know exactly what we're getting holistically and completely, is to, now that the property's been annexed, have those other 2 legs of this development stool run in parallel. That brought before you later this fall, hopefully, is the zoning ordinance and the TIF ordinance. So certainly I've heard clearly from you, Madam Chairwoman, and obviously we have a different view of what the city bound itself to, but I'd love to hear from others as to the NCA, as to infrastructure improvements, as to the prepaid tap.
Having not been a part of that pre-annexation agreement, before I say anything, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And we don't make it happen that, talking about TIFs and stuff before, this could get voted down. 3 of us were not involved in the pre-annexation, they're on council now. So I almost feel like you're putting us in a situation, I've spoken with, Mr. Maddox, are you putting us in a detrimental reliance thing, looking for something to hang us on? With Glenn saying what he's saying, you're saying what you said, that's how I feel. I feel like right now we're at a detrimental point that anything we say on the record could be used against us later.
Well,
I'm just reading the room.
Okay, I apologize if it sounds like I'm laying a trap. I'm not that smart, to be honest with you. Instead, I think here's why we're here tonight, and this is just as honest and plain spoken as I know how to be. We need to move this forward. We came into the village in good faith, and I think we were annexed in good faith, and now we've got the nub of these 2 remaining issues. So we've made some significant concessions that will be discussed more fully when it comes off the table. But we need the city also to partner with us and meet us halfway under its contractual obligations of the TIF. And so while I may have a disagreement with Chairwoman Geiger, there might be a spirited disagreement. I'd like to hear other thoughts and opinions. I guess out of respect to us, it was noticed up on the agenda tonight as a TIF discussion. And while Glenn could fill the next 2 hours, but him talking about not the discussion I came to hear. So I've heard clearly from Chairwoman Councilwoman Geiger. I'd like to hear from others. We've made a specific proposal. What are your reactions? What are your thoughts on the proposal? A potential NCA, prepayment of tap fees, and frankly, after hearing those thoughts and opinions, we'd love a route forward where it's, okay, informally, we're going to direct you to work with the village administrator Mr. Madison and bring us back the full package. That's what I'm after, council member.
My point is, if you bring it off the table, I think we should spend time on this, but if it's gonna be on the table, we have many other developers that are on a timeline. And when Glenn pulled this off, we made sure that everybody was where he did, so it stopped your time. So we have those times tabled, so this kind of thing doesn't take up valuable time for those people that are. So from my standpoint, to discuss this, I would rather you bring it off the table and be actively discussing it, because right now, Addison Farms is tabled and no longer moved until it's brought back on, if I'm understanding correctly. Isn't that what you said?
The zoning, that is correct. There's a TIF and a developer's agreement that's very much a requirement of the pre-annexation agreement, and we can't do one without the other.
I'm listening to that words, and I knew where a lot of people stand, just by the history of the votes and the discussion thing. I don't feel that way. I am at a point where I'd like to put some meat on this framework, because it's what I don't know that's missing. When we're talking about TIF payments, we're talking about 100%, we're talking about the possibility of splitting TIF thing, and I'm not asking you to answer. Sure. I would like I'd like to have the opportunity. There's a terrific amount of offsite that's not having to be spent, and obviously that has to come out of here. But the other part of it is that 15 years after this is put in place, all of a sudden the TIF money that we would have had to repave the streets with is all of a sudden it's not there. And the maintenance comes along with some. I'm looking at some other things, and the NCA, I think this absolutely has to be included in this. I don't see a way around it. I mean, those are my opinions. Yeah, I don't understand here.
Yeah, I think part of our, Mr. Officer, it's not dilly-dallying. We've been trying to read the tea leaves as to what council with Mr. Mattis' assistance, and we really haven't had the ability to sit down and talk with you, any of you, about these things. And so here we are on council, which we're happy to add, but it's I think always decided that city council standing this was the worst venue for negotiation I've ever heard. So, we're happy to talk to you about it.
Right, yeah, an acceptable path forward is, for instance, and you all know what you find acceptable, if, for instance, not through a vote, but just this informal discussion, you want as the village administrator and Mr. Trigo and Mr. Mattis to sit down with us and talk through terms and what the rule and the ordinance would look like, because the problem with taking the zoning off the table and moving forward on that is we personally can't do one without the other. We feel like we've offered a lot and kind of, got some creative suggestions through, but they really need to run in parallel tracks for us to make this viable. So
I think NCAs are a good idea. I think that, I brought it up like a million times, that we need to create our own NCA and have people join us, because NCAs basically have, the developers on the board for a short while, and then people from that community. So they decide where the money goes. That's how the last NCA was gonna go. But I know you can also do contracts to the village with them to say the village gets X amount every year. So I know there's ways around that, but I would like to have our own NCA and have people join that.
Typically, the way we do NCAs, and I'll defer to smarter people, but is you set them up with subject to the developer's property, and then you expand them. And that's typically how they're done. Some of the NCAs now are reaching thousands of acres. But that's what you're thinking, and
extensive.
Quite frankly, I think you're 100% right. That does make some sense. So, we're happy to talk about those things.
When you're negotiating, I was looking back through some TIF stuff. This is a TIF bond versus some of the other TIFs, and I know there are differences in between the two, but why would we reimburse your council fees and things like that? you're asking us to pay for everything. You got your. So things like that, you hear what I'm saying, I get it, but we're looking at it, we're looking at, you're asking for $100,000.
Those are part of the bond issuance cost. They didn't go to Joe or me, they go lender's attorney. Lender's attorney in order to have that, yeah. So yeah, those are all explainable and understandable, but good point, but that doesn't go to us and it doesn't.
So that's part of the unpartnered accounts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions,
No,
comments?
I think to sit down, but personally, I just feel comfortable. I know you can't do one without the other, but the timeline's kind of been stopped. I mean, officially, I know it. So if it was an active thing,
Yeah, I think we view it as an active thing with all due respect. Because all we need to be able to do, all we really need to do is put some meat on this bones, bring forward a consent agreement, which I could have drafted by the end of, business Wednesday, and be able to sit down and help understand what's in that. The NCA, bigger deal, it's gonna take a little bit longer to put that together. I'm not smart enough to do that. Joe and I are smarter guys than us to do that. But, get an agreement to do that, that's not hard. So, yeah, those are all things I think are workable out.
Maybe this is something we can discuss in our
Yeah,
town.
I
You get that together, send it.
suggest that.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I really want to talk, about this, with the mayor. We were talking about the thoughts that I have, other suggestions I have, and then people sit down and have a reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we have to communicate with Mass.
Yes.
Unless I'm standing here in front of it, a public hearing, so
Absolutely.
we'll continue
October
the option.
21st is our meeting,
I'm sorry?
October 21st is our next meeting,
Is that the cow or is that the cow?
It's the cow.
Okay, we can be here on the 21st.
so.
And then I'm sorry, I know you had a full agenda tonight to make good use of the time between now and the cow, and I'm happy to step away because he's the TIF guy, he's the zoning guy. So there are things we can do with Mr. Mattis to further it, so we don't just start anew at the cow, but have some concrete things before we.
If y'all can communicate, get a draft of the options.
Sure.
We would be happy to do that. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, the next business item is Craig Stevenson presentation. Is he here? Is on here? Okay. Come on. Next up is the COI Rickenbacker variance request, which is what we had the public hearing for. Did you say it?
Just needs to come up and hear talk about it, or?
He talked about it. Is there any questions that you guys have for additional questions? Or do you have anything else to say that maybe you missed?
But, we're asking for a stream setback variance on lot 5. I think your plan probably shows a little more than probably 30 feet. We've actually dialed that back recently in our design to about 15 feet. I believe when I was here a few years ago, on the lot 9 project, it was a very similar variance that was accepted, so we're just asking for the same. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have questions answered on the fueling station?
I believe so. It shows on the paper a lot bigger and entailed than, what you're saying for yard jockeys and stuff. I mean, it looks like it's gonna be a 3-bay, place for, like a JB Hunt terminal or something. I see 700 trailer spots. It's like, I guess one of my concerns is, if we're looking at this, and this is not clearing related, but if we're looking at all these trailers and trucks, we need to worry about making the entrance at Commerce supposed to come up with a door right in, right out. And would that make your expense so that they don't try to leave and we can push everybody to our traffic lane? I'm saying around 762, because if we're talking hundreds of trucks a day, we don't want somebody who's not familiar with the area to come out, try to make a left on 104 and crash. So, those are expenses that we can incur down the road. And should that be something that we can work with us to take care of, to make sure that doesn't happen with the right in, right out, or whatever the state tells us we need to do there. There's 700 trailers. At some point, those trailers got to they got to move forward daily. And I know how those warehouses are. They bring in train load, 200 trailers, hold those until they district. I get it.
But if we're at a turnover point, we can have 400 or 500 trucks coming in a day. You know, we need to plan ahead. It's already a hot area right there. And how are we going to ensure that they go out simply south of 762?
Yeah, I mean, my only guess is that the path of least resistance is usually what the truck drivers do, which is go to the left to go to the traffic light, that's like 62 back up to 23. But also, I think when Canova planned to develop a different traffic study for the entire park, they planned to Kenmore Boulevard and all those roads, assuming that the park was fully built out. So again, I would imagine the traffic study handled all that, so the improvements that are in place today should handle it full out. So I think this would be the fourth building in the park or stuff.
So 90% of that traffic would be going out to 23.
Yeah. And even that, I know that signal's not quite turned on yet, but I imagine it would be when
Oh,
these
yes,
guys
yeah.
shut up, so. Which would be good.
You could have flash.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No, I feel that's.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next up is the liquor board hearing request. We need a decision. Right, it's just a name change. I don't think it's, something we need to get a hearing about over a name change. I think that would be wasted taxpayer dollars, just like our attorney out there. That's just my opinion, Ross. I agree with you, agree. Okay. So now I need a motion to second. You either have the hearing or not have the hearing.
Make a motion not have to pass.
Have a second? Second. Sarah? Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright. Okay, next, fountains and retention ponds. John Robeson here. There he is. We kind of discussed this at the CAL, he wouldn't mind coming up here. And I sent you some, stuff from Grove City. And our concern was is that fountains versus how big the pond is, keeping it clean. So I did check around, and if Grove City has, or they require a fountain and a bubbler in every fountain. And they have, for every, 3/4 of an acre, they need a fountain and a bubbler. So if it's over that, you're gonna need another fountain. And they run theirs through November.
Something else. So I noticed, I've been driving around, I don't know where, but in the evenings, when it's dark, I've noticed some places have lights on their fountain and some don't. I would propose that we request a light, and the reason being is over in Walker Point, right where I go in, it is pitch black over there, there are no lights, and I worry that because you can't see over at that pond, somebody new to the area or something, it's not lit up and you don't know that there's water in there. I've encountered that before driving that way. So if we could look at maybe have, requesting a light there or like near the pond, that would be good. That's just, for me, maybe it's just Aldra's being extra cautious, and that's okay. But I worry about not having visual at ponds, so if we put those in, can we have, I've seen them lighted, they look cool, but it feels safety related.
Okay, you know, it was in the pond.
No, the fountain has a.
Yeah, so, okay.
Kind of like Silver's Point House, right? Kind of like Silver Point House.
Oh, no, I haven't been down that way.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
They're like all lit up, yeah.
Yeah, if the fountain has a light to it, that makes me happy to make sure there's safety, there's quality of trip, that's all.
I think that's a good point. When you through road safety requirements, they have several,
Yes,
I mean, 100 and some pages long.
it is.
They require a walking path around the hole, which is interesting twist. So what we need to do is look at this objectively and see what fits where we are right now. It also has, landscaping has to be done by arborists, who they have on staff.
Yeah, so.
That doesn't mean we have money, we don't need all of it.
If the council has seen this document, it's gonna be a couple things. But let's go back to the issue at hand, and it was the number of aerators and so forth and so on. We've got some ponds out in the industrial park, immense. They can be 15 acres. Usually we standard has be fountains all over the time. I think we need to, maybe it doesn't fit every situation to use a chart like this one. I think in a residential area, have a lot of merit. I like the light concept. See, that's all good. The trouble plan. I like that. That's a good statement. Yeah. It's all good. I mean, I thought about the music part. Well, retirement. But I think Nancy went to the extra step and have these things located. What I'd like to do is kind of take them, digest a little bit. I want to talk to Jim Pizzoka. I'll probably work it all season. And come back with council with make some recommendations, and then we shore up our requirements to address some of these things. I mean, that's certainly a smart idea. I want to kind of look at the number of fountains. Fountains have two functions. They can be aesthetic. Wow, that's pretty good lights before that. They can also be for oxygen transfer if you're concerned about aquatic life. It also controls mosquitoes. Mosquitoes don't like moving water, so you got the waves and so forth on it. So we need to decide what it is we want to accomplish with our fountains. Maybe it's all those things, and that's what we have to do. That maybe it's what we want to put. Maybe we just want to have it for some aesthetics and taking care of mosquitoes. That doesn't take as many fountains to get the oxygen transfer. They do require, as you mentioned, a bubbler system, which is another. Ours does not require bubbler system at all. In fact, we don't accept those right now because they don't create the waves. Right. They kind of softens the water down the fountain, and it's all part of the aesthetics. So with council's permission, I'd like to take that and kind of get the information that Nancy's provided here and maybe get something back in. I don't have it ready for a council meeting, but certainly for the next council meeting, it'll be on your agenda and also in your boxes so you can look at it. And come up with an answer how we handle it. I think it is an issue. All of these are maintained and owned and operated by the HOAs. The village council, several years ago, passed legislation said, we're not going to take care of any of these things. We're going to tell you what to put in, so we're not going to pay to fix it, repair it, all those kind of things. We also, in our legislation, need to put the time frame. Well, my time from like April 1, not even First Day, April 1 to October 31st. That time period, they must be on. Now, some will be on 24/7, 365. That's their prerogative, but we want them on time, and we don't have that in the regulation either. So we do a little finesse trying to ride the developers, and what happens when the developer's gone, our leverage is a little less. And now I'm talking to the HOAs and some of those kind of things, and it doesn't always require developer I can lean on, do this, and try and get some things taken care of. Having them here just gives them a leg to stand on. So I'd like to get a chance to go through that and then bring it back to you.
I know, at least from my perspective, I'm interested in making sure that we have that for the mosquitoes and for the algae that can attract all sorts of junk.
All kinds of things.
I don't mind aesthetics, I mean, that's neither here nor there for me, just safety. And I figure, if we lessen mosquitoes, maybe we don't have as much of the mosquito spraying too. It's a little more natural, like more natural solutions.
I like that. I agree. It's good. Sometimes you have to use some chemical. Yeah. I agree. I think that would be good. Well, let me approach it with that kind of in mind.
Thank you.
If you want to put the fancy stuff in, if you have to walk way around each one of the ponds when they go in, and some of those kind of things, we can talk about that. If you drive up through River City, right along 62, just there's a little pond right there. Walking path already. Is that what we want? I want that, all those kind of things. We just need to talk about it, and then we'll cut the tip out of this document and make something that fits where we are right now. Someday, this document or something similar to it. But it was just passed in January of this year. So it's a hot off the press. I don't know how much they even try to use it to enforce. But a lot of guilt we're going to be putting that together.
Thank you so much. Thanks, John.
I can answer, if you have questions on that, or just kind of direction, think where to go, and I'll follow your lead with any questions you get, or Nancy's got my number sheet. Have no problem, give me a call.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Okay, we're gonna move on to legislation. First reading, ordinance 2024-16, an ordinance accepting the final plat of Foxfire subdivision, phase 3, part 2. No, we're gonna do a first read only. Next one, resolution 31-2024, a resolution approving the major site plan application for Maria Reyes Rosales, not sure how to say that, for the El Canon Retail Center and Restaurant. Okay, next is resolution 27-2024, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the reading.
Okay, Ross and Eric, you all in favor? Do you want to
Oh,
call?
no.
Roll call. Call.
Andrea?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Nancy? Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, roll call?
Sarah?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes. Okay, resolution 29-2024, a resolution to make temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Commercial Point, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025. Can you just suspend that? I don't think so. Thank you. Resolution 30-2024, a resolution authorizing and directing the village administrator to enter into a contract with Environmental Design Group for engineering services for the Bellshazzar Street Improvement Project and declaring an emergency. Have to suspend. Okay, Andrea, is there a second? Second. Sarah? Roll call?
Nancy?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes. Okay, do we have a motion? Motion to adopt. Second? Second. Sarah? Roll call?
Andrea?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Eric?
Okay, for second reading, we have ordinance 2024-13, an ordinance amending the zoning code of the Village of Commercial Point to repeal and replace section 113509 of the zoning code as to street closures and village property event permits. Ordinance 2024-14, an ordinance amending chapter 806 of the codified ordinances of the Village of Commercial Point, peddlers, itinerant merchants, and solicitors. Resolution 26-2024, a resolution approving the major site plan application for COI Rickenbacker Lot 5 LLC as to Lot 5 in the Rickenbacker Exchange Part 3 development.
I have a question. So, third reading is next meeting. Do we have to approve that variance request before we approve the site plan? Or are they separate items?
It'll be the site plan with the variance request in it.
Okay, so
I understand it, yeah.
Okay.
Because the site plan requires a variance for you to approve.
Okay, I didn't know if they were
But you
separate.
will make a vote to whatever way you want to go with the variance. You'll still have to make a motion, a second, and a vote.
So it'll be two votes to go.
Correct.
Okay,
On the same topic, though, correct?
okay, thank you.
Okay, third reading. Ordinance 2024-09, an ordinance amending the zoning code of the Village of Commercial Point by adding section 118106 solar panels to the zoning code.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion by Ross, or second?
Second.
Eric? Roll call?
Sarah?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Andrea?
Okay, pending administrative action, resolution 28-2024, a resolution to increase the appropriation for the contractual service account 2903-490-399-2504 within the other special revenue fund of the 2024 permanent budget.
What this is $10 for the reimbursement that you're doing to Foxfire. The whole TIF has just been a learning experience for me, so we just didn't appropriate enough in the Foxfire for the money that we took in this year.
You just need a motion to approve.
We do need a motion on this. Okay, I'll make a motion for that then.
Okay, Andrea,
Second.
okay,
Ross. Roll call. Nancy? Yes. Ross?
Yep.
Sarah? Yes. Eric?
Yes.
Andre?
Yes. Okay, is there any additional business?
Yeah, I would like to address some of the public comments. Just so you're all aware, I have called twice, but it wasn't a complaint against the establishment. It was a complaint about the noise of the vehicles coming in, when they were driving down our street. I was almost hit in with a wheelchair on the sidewalk the one time. They've never been anonymous. To be honest with you, you are correct. To make a noise complaint, the sheriff's office is not supposed to take anonymous phone calls. I don't know why they are. Maybe Chief can check with them and see. I do not have a problem. As a matter of fact, Thursday I was listening to Bob in my backyard. Didn't have a problem. You are correct. Mr. Strutman asked me to come down to meet with me to ask me if he could make the old post office residential versus commercial and just show me what it was with new walls. And I told him that I would check to see what the zoning was of the building and would get back to him. He also had asked about another property that he's wanting to develop to ask, what the land use committee was considering. I was there about an hour and 5 minutes. I did not even have a phone with me. The lady we were speaking with did leave while Mike and I sat there and talked. She went upstairs for something. I think she said her kid lives up there. And then I went home. The other night, the music was really incredibly loud. Was the one live band. It was, I could hear that one in my house, but honestly, most of the time, when I'm in watching TV, I can't hear it on my side of the street. If I'm outside, I can. On the far end. I never want a small business to have expenses that they can't have. I had that, when we owned the bar in South Bloomfield. There's nothing against the thing that I brought up was to, quite honestly, protect Doughboys or whatever, what's meeting next? Next. That way everybody knew who it's going to be. It was so Chief could plan, if it's going to be 500 people, he may need to come in himself. So it wasn't, he said, she said. It was for 2 or more people performing, not 2 or more people there. And it was more for planning for us, not right now. And I said, it's for down the road. We do have bigger places and bigger venues. And everything I bring up isn't for right now. I've said time and time again, we need to be proactive, not reactive. I hope the 2 ladies have a very successful time. That has been a staple in the community. But like I said, I've called twice. I've never complained about the establishment. It's been the things, outside of it. And I've given my name both times. So if they're getting anonymous calls, I can't answer that. As far as the officer, he did not come to me. It was a night, I think it actually was the night of the band. And he had come to me after he went to visit, because there was a volume adjustment, and for me it was fine. It had come down enough. And he said, my gosh, I don't know who I would cite if I have to cite. I've got 3 owners, I've got a manager, I've got a sound guy. Who would I cite? I simply said, I'd cite all of them, I guess, and let the court figure it out. That was all that was said. That's the only time, and there was actually 2 of them that night. I have not met with any of them. I see them every once in a while. I talk to them, but I see Mike, and I talk to him too. Those days ended in 2011. I don't care to have them back. I wouldn't have Adam's job if I was given enough money to retire forever. It's been brought up by Ms. Anderson several times and her husband that the traffic is horrible everywhere, and my complaints are right along with that. It's the noise from the streets, it's the noise from exhaust, that, the way people drive. And maybe the more we voice it, people will see this and they'll adjust, accordingly. So you were correct, I was across the street for, it might have been an hour and 15 minutes. We were simply discussing the use of that building. He asked me if I happened to know, and he asked me about Hell's Half Acre when Belshazzar's done, if they were going to have any place to park during that. You know, and I just told him what our engineer said. So that's where I stand, that's where I'm at. I have nothing to gain or lose either way. But from my house with the doors closed or with the windows closed, watching TV, I couldn't hear Rob. I had to go sit in my wheelchair on the ramp to listen to him, and I'll go back into my show game. So that's where I'm at. You know, I appreciate you guys bringing your concern, keeping the situation on public record. I have nothing to hide, never will have anything to hide. And if you see me out and you want to talk about it, stop, we'll have a conversation. Being an elected official, you can't hide. Being a police officer for 19.62 years, you can't hide. You know, your life is public record. So, you know, Rob, you live a lot longer. You know, and I even said to my wife, I said, my God, you know, if they've complained before, why are they not complaining now? We had that exact comment. And, you know, then I guess they did get a complaint that night or something. But while I was at Mike's, he did drive past, you know, 2 or 3 times. But quite honestly, I don't know how many officers are on. And if that's where the most activity is, that's where he should, you know, if there's, you know, been problems. But to my knowledge, I don't know who called, I don't know, you know, anything like that. So, but that's where I'm at. Always, if you want to talk, if you see me out, feel free to stop. Other than that, I wish the 2 ladies luck and look forward to, you know, enjoying the music when I'm outside. And if it's too loud, honestly, I'll roll over. And I'll say, hey, anyway, we can calm it down a little bit so my family can have a movie.
I think I wanna say, in the additional bonus, you said that Mike called you over there to ask you zoning questions. We should call in this office.
No. He had me come over to talk about some other things. And then, well, yes, he had me.
We need to refer them to the office. We have a zoning department. I heard you say you told him you'd look into it and get back to them.
Yes,
They need to call in here and get that. We're not zoning department.
I get that. But he asked, so I went to ask what he was talking about.
And I had people ask me too, and I said, you need to call in the office and talk to Wendy or Jim or John or someone. So I think we have to have yeah. Motion to adjourn by Ross.
Second.
Second by Eric. All in favor? All right, have a good evening.